Hey everyone, welcome to week 9 of the ABC. We're going up against Baldi, aka Jack, coach of the Brazumarill, one of the coolest, probably one of the coolest team names in the league. Super excited to be playing him. I've seen him throughout the season. I think he's a really big dark horse to really be one of the winners, at least in the slacking conference. I think he has a really good shot. And yeah, that's all I can really say about him. He's just been a phenomenal battler all these weeks. He lost week 1 and then started going on a 7-win streak. We are 8-0. We're on somewhat of a win streak ourselves. But, you know, we're going to try and stop his win streak. We're going to try and prevent ours from being stopped by him. So that's the goal. His team is on the screen. You can see it: Mega Scizor, Sylveon, Weezing, Pelipper, Latios, Ludicolo, Lycanroc Day, Rotom, Miltank, Hippowdon, and Floatzel. It's really a hard team to prep for. It seems like a lot of underwhelming mons sort of like on their own, but prepping for Mega Scizor, Sylveon, Latios is a Dragon Fairy Steel Core is hell in itself, not to mention you have to prep for 2 separate Rain Cores, and things like Miltank and Rotom, etc. So definitely very scary. Making his lower tier Mon Z captains also make them just so much more threatening. So it was really tough to build around. So I'm not going to show my team. You know it at this point. So if you want to know it, you can go back to another video. The first Mon was Porygon Z. Has Normalium Z. His only resists are to Tri Attack our Mega Scizor and Lycanroc. Lycanroc dies to a +2 Tri Attack, and then Mega Scizor dies to a +0 HP Fire. That's all I got to really say for it. I considered going Recover over Nasty Plot, but I don't know. I figured that Nasty Plot was better to guarantee just one-shots. If I got both Agility and Nasty Plot up, I basically just win, which is really nice. I do have to be careful of Bullet Punch, which does about 40 to 45% with my defensive spread here, but it's still okay. And then obviously a Cell Rock is another issue, but I take the combination of the two with about 30-35% left, so that's should be okay if I need to set up before Scizor or Lycanroc is gone. But ideally I set this thing up when one of those two things is gone. So that's the sort of Porygon Z vibe. There were a few other sets I was considering. I might just save them for playoffs if I even want to bring Porygon Z. I don't even know if I do yet. But that's the other thing when I had to consider building is I will probably play Jack in playoffs, so I have to save off on some sets and not really think about. I definitely found some sets I really want to bring, but I had to hold off on them, at least for this game. So, yep, just had to bring some sort of generic sets, but sets that made sense, and were a little bit more obvious, but that's okay. We brought Big Disco, Bronzong, holding a Colbur Berry to take Crunches and Darken EMZs from Floatzel and Lycanroc, and then also take a knockoff from Scizor, fire back with an HP Fire. It's kind of obvious. I think he'll expect Bronzong to have HP Fire, but I don't think he'll expect the Colbur Berry. So if he feels like he can kill me when I'm at about 40-50% with a knockoff, I can fire back with Hidden Power Fire and just sort of trade my Bronzong for the Scizor, which is going to be a phenomenal trade if I need to make it happen. Calm Mind is there if I can set up on things like Hippowdon, which really cannot touch Bronzong absent Crunch. And if he brings Crunch, that's fine by me. It just means he has one less spot for something like Toxic or Whirlwind or something like that, because he definitively, if he wants to touch the majority of my team, he has to bring Crunch to hit Bronzong, and he has to bring Earthquake to hit Diancie. So I feel like he has to run those two moves, and then Recovery, obviously, and then either Rocks or Toxic or something like that. So, yeah, I think Calm Mind really works pretty well for Bronzong. Even if you use Crunch, it's only going to do, especially after the Colbur Berry, it's only going to do like 15%, and then the next one will do a little bit less, and Psychic will just be doing really big damage. That's really good. And then the special attack is actually going to like do a ton of damage. It does about 75% to things like Floatzel. It 2-shots Ludicolo. It almost 2-shots Lycanroc. I mean, it's just the spread was pretty nice to have. So that's the Bronzong set. Moltres is here basically only to counter Scizor. Scizor's a giant threat against my team, so even though he has a rain team, I need to make sure that I have a Moltres to fire back. It doesn't have Fire Stab because I figured Hurricane was just better to get 100% accuracy in the rain. U-Turn is really nice for pivoting, and then Will-O-Wisp is really nice to nerf things. I feel like I'd rather hit Will-O-Wisp against Mega Scizor to allow some things to set up, as opposed to just go straight away for a Fire Blast, which, if it's in the rain, might not even kill. So I feel like Will-O-Wisp is a bit safer of a move than Fire Blast. That's it. Yeah. Then Leftovers is there. A little bit defensive, a little bit fast in order to outspeed Rotom Mow. So that's the idea behind Moltres, and I think it's a good bring. Next mon is Decidueye. It's a trapping set in order to trap things like Hippowdon and trap things like Sylveon and just sort of whittle them down with Spirit Shackle and Leaf Blade. If Sylveon stays in here, I outstall it. Unless it's specs, it means I always take Hyper Voice, and this actually just sort of stalls Sylveon out, or might just do super effective damage. His team is relatively Ghost weak, so not Ghost weak, but it didn't have a lot of Ghost resists. So I felt pretty confident just sort of bringing Spirit Shackle, spamming it if I need to. That was sort of the idea behind it. I'm finally bringing Defog on Decidueye too, because I just think that rocks are super important to clear off the field with both an Araquanid and a Moltres on my team. So, and he has one, in my opinion, one of the best rock setters in the game in Hippowdon. So just seemed very, very necessary to have a Defog Decidueye at this point. So, yep. And then Araquanid. Araquanid was a hard decision, but I brought it because I thought that AV was a really nice niche check to things like Pelipper, and especially Latios, yeah, most specifically Latios, Sylveon too. It was also a really nice Weezing answer because I couldn't be burned from Will-O-Wisp. Just a lot of really nice stuff, and if none of those mons come and maybe like Rotom Mow comes, I can Mirror Coat stuff. Really, really nice. Liquidation and Leech Life is basically all I need. I put Scald on here. You can see I don't have much special attack, but I put Scald on here just to see if I could snag a burn on Scizor if I needed to, and honestly, even though this attack is absolutely garbage, Scald still does like 30% to to a Mega Scizor, like outside of rain. Like in rain it does like 50%. So that's absolutely insane. I'm really happy that, you know, Scald is insanely powerful regardless of this pitiful special attack stat. So really good to keep in mind down the road. My last mon is Special Garchomp. I understand this gets walled by Sylveon, but its main purpose is to really catch defensive mons like Hippowdon, and if he brings a Will-O-Wisping, Rotom Mow off guard and kill them with Fire Blast and Surf respectively. It's also just to beat things like physically defensive Weezing. The problem with him is that he has a lot of really nice Will-O-Wispers in Weezing and Rotom Mow. He has a lot of mods that want to hit Scald, things like Pelipper, Ludicolo, maybe even Floatzel. I don't know what he'll bring, but maybe even Floatzel. So this really makes sure I don't get the burn. And honestly, Life Orb does tons of damage. 2 shots Hippowdon easily. Draco Meteor just nukes something. Earth Power is there for if I want to get a slight nuke off that doesn't lower my special defense. And then Fire Blast is to really cover the rest. This achieves perfect coverage and is obviously something unattainable. Actually, it's very attainable physically, but it's not as effective because of the Will-O-Wisping, the Scalding, and the, frankly, Hippowdon. Like a +2 Aqua Tail doesn't even kill Hippowdon. It doesn't even do like, it does like 70% at +2. So I wasn't really impressed by that, and that's considering Life Orb. So I wasn't really impressed by it. Ended up deciding just to go for a Special Garchomp, see if I can catch him off guard, bring a wacky set while I can before the serious playoffs come happening. So that's sort of the team. That is the team. It's not sort of the team. That is the team. We're going to go into the replay here. As you can see, he doesn't bring the Latios, which is really, really nice for me. It's going to make Araquanid a lot more expendable in a really good way because, well, it does things like outspeed the Hippowdon, and that's about it. It forces a lot of offensive pressure, and if he knows I have Mirror Coat early, he's going to be really afraid to hit attacks like Hurricane and stuff like that. I see the Mega Scizor comes, which means that Moltres is going to do a lot of work. However, what I didn't expect to come was the Floatzel, and Floatzel really scares the crap out of me because Ice Punch plus Crunch plus Water Move does a lot of damage to me, so I'm going to have to keep my Bronzong relatively alive to take the Colbur Berry from Crunch Floatzel, presumably. The problem with that is I feel like once Floatzel tears a hole in my team, I'm a little bit worried about Lycanroc, so gotta really keep both those things in mind. Keep some of my defensive mons a bit healthy to deal with mons like that, and yeah, that's basically it. So we're gonna go into the game. It was really nervous, but this team matchup was pretty okay with me. Now here you can see I get the really correct lead right, so he's forced out knowing that Hippowdon's going to take about 80% from Liquidation. I actually go for a Scald looking for a burn. Liquidation would have done more to this Pelipper, but Scald into Liquidation was better play against Hippowdon. He goes into, I'm going to pause this here, he goes into Pelipper. I just go for a Scald, does big damage, which is really nice, and I actually calc it and see that he has 0 HP and 0 special defense based on that damage. So, that's really interesting in my opinion, because it means that he's probably either Specs or Scarf, and I feel like if he was a Spec set, he would be max HP. So it does scream Scarf to me. I write that down, I keep it in my mind a little bit, but yeah, I just keep it in my mind. I have to keep in mind it seems more of an offensive set, but that's kind of good news for me because it means that Rain is only going to be up for about 4 turns. So I go for a Mirror Coat here, thinking that he's going to want to go right away for a Hurricane, who's definitely a huge misplay by me. It was one of my first misplays. It was the first misplay I made within this game. I made a few more that I'll talk about later. But I go for a Mirror Coat, and that's a problem because it reveals Mirror Coat, which means he's not going to want to use special moves against me while I'm at high health. So even though there's Rain, I'm still going to keep going for hits. Liquidation is going to do about 80% in Rain, going to do about 60% outside of Rain. He goes for a Hyper Voice. He's sort of just using the Sylveon to stall out the Rain. Liquidation does a huge amount of damage to the Sylveon, which is so nice. He's going to Protect again in order to stall the Rain out so that my Liquidations don't hit as harder, which is, I'm totally fine with that. If he wants to stall out his own Rain in order to stop my threats, that's completely fine. I think my mons are threatening with or without Rain. So he's going to switch into Scizor, sort of just sort of being cornered by this Arachnid, as I'm going to make the very obvious switch into my Moltres as he ends up roosting instead of U-turning, which is really unfortunate. If he U-turned, there was a chance for Flame Body, plus he'd have less health. But regardless, I'm still going to predict him to switch out and go for a U-turn. I don't think there was any world in which he was staying in. So I went for a U-turn, and here I sent in my Garchomp. And, I mean, the problem was that, like, there was nothing, knowing these things might be Specs, there was nothing I wanted to send in that just made it like die. And like I honestly would have rather kept I might have rather gone Arachnid at this point, but even then, like, Hurricane's going to be doing a large amount. And if he is, this is going to give me information on whether he is Scarf or not. So, you know, I might lose my Sharkeisha right here to, worst case scenario, a Scarfed Ice Beam, but if he Scarfs himself in Ice Beam, that's going to give me a large amount of momentum. And I'm completely fine losing my special Garchomp in exchange for one of his other giant threats. So it turns out he is Scarf, and he reveals Scarf here and goes for an Ice Beam. I actually, if he was Scarf, didn't expect for him to go for Ice Beam. I thought that my switch-ins were too good. Things like Arachnid and Bronzong could easily switch into a Scarf Ice Beam and sort of just scout for the Scarf. So I thought Ice Beam was sort of a interesting play by him, but I was totally fine with it because I was able to go right back into my Arachnid. There's no way he's staying in because he needs this, or he does stay in. In my mind, he wasn't going to stay in because he needed Scarf to outspeed things like Moltres really effectively, outspeed things like Porygon Z really effectively. And while he does have things like Floatzel's useless without the Rain, so I thought he needed to keep the Rain up. So it's weird to me, he stays in and goes for Ice Beam, which would be fine for me, but he gets a Freeze. So I'm really upset. I don't know if you see the chat in the video, but I'm really upset about the Freeze because, you know, 10% Haxes I don't like. Anything else is fine with me. But 10% hacks on the Freeze, really unfortunate. It's not the end of the world because I do have Scald, thank God. But what it's going to do is it's going to let him keep his Pelipper alive, which is going to mean that Floatzel is going to be doing a large amount of damage on my team, whereas I could have just killed it in that moment. So I am forced to go for Scald in this moment. So that's kind of sad. And then I'm just going to go for Liquidation here. So this is why the Freeze mattered, as you're going to see a little bit later why the Freeze mattered, but The fact that Pelipper was not dead meant at this point in the game Raiden would be gone and Floatzel would be so much less of a threat. So that's unfortunate, but it's no big deal. We thought out, and Pelipper's going to come in now. I think he might have done a calc wrong and thought that Hurricane killed. Thankfully, he does not really know that I'm Assault Vest, so I do take this Hurricane hit, and I can fire back with a Mirror Coat. Now, the rain is up for 4 turns, which is annoying, but what can you do? So he's going to go for Crunch. I don't really have a good switch in, so Crunch is going to take out my Araquanid. It's totally fine. Araquanid did a ton of work taking out 2 of his mons so far, and we're even about 4-4, so this is actually turning out to be a really good game. I think I'd be a little bit more ahead if it weren't for that freeze, but regardless, I think it was I felt okay at this time in the match. I was a little worried about Floatzel, but I think I was okay because I preserved my Bronzong enough to be able to take 2 crunches, potentially 3 depending on rolls and defense drops, and 2-shot with Psychic. So that was the goal. If he switches out here, there's really not much he can switch out into because he fears HP Fire for the Scizor. Hippowdon doesn't really beat it in any way unless it has Crunch. It still doesn't beat it anyway. Same thing with Lycanroc. He doesn't want to switch into a Psychic because it's so frail, so he's forced to go for a Crunch here, and I'm just going to get another Psychic off. He does get the defense drop, which is really unfortunate, but not a huge deal. He does go into Hippowdon here. Because of the defense drop, I decide to switch out. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed in and gone for a Calm Mind. But I do go hard into my Decidueye thinking that he's going to set up rocks, and that's going to allow me to defog them away. So I'm going to do that right away. I'm not going to fuck around with this. I do have a Moltres that's, as time goes on, becoming more and more important for this game because Scizor is going to become a huge threat if I don't beat it properly. So I need to have my answer to Scizor there perfectly fine. So yeah, I gotta defog these away. So I'm gonna defog them away now. It's gonna give him momentum into Scizor, but thankfully, since I defogged them away, I'm able to once again easily go Moltres. So I'm feeling pretty confident. I don't really think too much about this play. I just go hard Moltres, which bites me in the butt because he makes a really amazing double into Lycanroc. It was definitely a scary double because I could have gone for something else. I could have gone for a Spirit Shackle. I could have gone for an attacking move on Decidueye. He didn't know if I had HP Fire or not, and then I could have gone into like a Leaf Blade or something. I feel like it was a great play. It was just a risky play, and it paid off for him. So yeah, I'm at a huge loss in terms of momentum here, which forces me to go back into my Bronzong, and he goes for the Stone Edge. Now, this is a little bit unfortunate for me that he missed the Stone Edge because I don't get an idea of whether he's Bandit or Life Orb or Scarf. I doubt he's Scarf because he's probably Sandrush. But he's also kind of upset about it because it means that damage on this Bronzong that could have been important is now not there. So I'm just going to go for a Psychic, thinking he's going to want to stay in and Crunch. I don't know anything about his set, so I just presume he's going to stay in and Crunch. It had like a 70% chance to kill. But the fact he switched out makes me think in my mind that this might be Choice Banded in some way, but potentially not. If he was Life Orb, he definitively killed me there. So my mindset says that this thing is probably Choiced. Yeah, my mindset says this thing's definitively Choiced because he didn't attack me with Crunch, and Crunch presumably killed there. I mean, I did the calc and it did like the roll was like 41. It was like 40 to. Like I would have needed an absolute min roll in order for Life Orb Crunch to not kill me. So that either tells me it's a Z move or it's Choiced. And the fact that he switched out tells me, yeah, it's either a Z move or it's Choiced. So he switches out, I go for a Psychic, and unfortunately I do die to a knockoff. And now to sort of scout out this Lycanroc set a little bit more, I am forced to switch out just a little bit. He goes for a Bug Bite here, thinking I'm going to stay in. I don't get the Flame Body off, unfortunately, but this does allow me to get a free Will-O-Wisp on one of 3 physical attackers here. So even if it's this Hippowdon, that's going to be really nice because it's going to allow me for Bronzong to sort of wall it a little bit better if it has Crunch, and then most notably, it's going to allow me to bring in Porygon Z a bit later in the game and set up a little bit more effectively on it. So I'm here with Decidueye. He sets up rocks again. That's really all he can do. I'm just going to go for a defog because these rocks need to be gone, is he's going to reveal that he has Crunch. So really good information to know that he has Crunch. Nothing like Toxic, nothing like... he's basically revealed his whole moveset here. It's Slack Off, Crunch. Presumably, he hasn't revealed Earthquake yet, but he presumably has Earthquake because if he didn't carry Earthquake, he would have 0 way to hit Mega Diancie. So I feel like he would never bring a Hippowdon that gets walled by Mega Diancie. So here's just sort of like a stall war that goes on a little bit. I trap him with Spirit Shackle, but I ultimately realized that this is a losing game. I could go for Leaf Blade, but I don't know why I didn't go for Leaf Blade, actually, come to think of it. Oh, you know what? I totally made a change on you know what? I should have mentioned this in the team builder. I made a change on Decidueye. I was never Leaf Blade. I was actually Toxic, I believe, to deal with Miltank. Yeah, that's what I remember. I was Toxic. That was the problem. If I was Leaf Blade, I would have gone for it. I originally had Leaf Blade on the build because obviously for this situation, but I figured Toxic was a bit better all around. So that's my bad. Forgot that I replaced Leaf Blade with Toxic. Had completely forgot, but that's why I switched out there. Otherwise, it would have been totally weird play. But I do go into my Porygon Z. I use this as an opportunity to set up an agility to outspeed the Lycanroc. So I am going to go for an agility. He's going to go for a Bullet Punch, get a pretty decently high roll, which I'm okay with, but I will go for Hidden Power Fire, take out the Mega Scizor, which is going to be really nice for me. It's going to make Moltres a bit more expendable, but that's totally okay. Now I'm going to go for a second agility here because I need to outspeed this Lycanroc in the sand. Just get some damage off on this Lycanroc in the sand. And what that's going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to get the Z move off and go for the Breakneck Blitz. Now, here he's forced to a Cell Rock. If he's choiced, he'll be forced to lock into a Cell Rock. If he's choiced like Bandit or something, then, you know, I can... If he's choiced... I'll just say this right now. He is Choice Banded. So he is Choice Banded at this point in the game. And I didn't know this. I presumed he was maybe a Z move or whatever. So, but I learned after the game that he is Choice Banded. So he goes into his Lycanroc here. Now there's a few things he can lock himself into. I think regardless of hacks, regardless of the miss, regardless of the freeze, etc., Lycanroc would, in the end, be in this position where Porygon Z is set up, and he has to go for... He has to either take the damage and lock himself into something. If he locks himself into Stone Edge, that's super risky because it has a, you know, if it has to land 4 times, and then if he locks himself into Crunch, it means Moltres actually walls it if it's Choice Banded, which means at this point he's basically forced to lock himself into a Cell Rock to get the kill off on this thing. Lock himself into anything else. He could lock himself into Stone Edge. If I was lower on Bronzong, then maybe 2 Stone Edges would have killed, but that's super reliant on landing 4 Stone Edges, and you know, I would get about 60-70% off on this Lycanroc. So I don't know, it's a little bit weird, but I'm not going to think about it too much. He does go for a Cell Rock regardless and take out my Porygon Z. Now here, remember, I don't know that he's banded, so I figure my best path of winning is seeing if he wants to go for Crunch here. If he goes for a Cell Rock, it confirms he's banned. And if he goes for Crunch here, he has 2 chances to get burned. Thankfully, he is banded. He does get burned anyway, so that just worked out amazingly for me. And then I can safely go right back into my Bronzong, claim the final kill. I guaranteed take like 9 Cell Rocks, so I should be totally okay. And that's the game. It was a little bit of a hacksy game in the sense that he missed the Stone Edge and I got frozen, but I think it was still a really good game. It didn't affect much in my opinion, because, you know, if Lycanroc was choiced and I still had Bronzong alive at this point of health, like I still think that he would have had to land Stone Edges. We were talking after the game and about like the hacks that happened, and we came to a consensus to not really worry about it because like it's Mons or whatever. But the thing behind it was just like his mentality was like, look, if I, yeah, his mentality was, look, if I ended up doing it, so if I ended up landing the Stone Edge, if he ended up landing the Stone Edge against my Bronzong, he claimed that my Bronzong would have been in range for another Stone Edge. Now, presume all of that is correct, and I would have been in range for a Stone Edge here. I feel like the odds of him winning are still so low at this point, because he has to get a roll on my Decidueye based on how I calced after. Like if we're in this exact same position right here, right? And he Stone Edges me, and I'm at this amount of health. The thing is like I can pretty easily, like he has to land 4 first of all, not land 4, which is pretty. I feel like that's more unlikely than likely. And then he has to get the roll on Decidueye. He has to take forced damage with Tri-Attack with Porygon Z. I mean, I just feel like there was a lot of ways for that Lycanroc sweep in the endgame that he was desiring, if he were to go for Stone Edge, to not pay off in his favor. So I don't know. I'm sort of mixed on it. It's hard to explain because it would have been a completely different game had the Stone Edge miss not happen. But honestly, like, I don't care too much. No disrespect to Jack, because like Stone Edge is Stone Edge. Like, you don't put on Stone Edge expecting it to land every time. So, you know, it's rough. It's a little weird. We have no idea what would have happened in the end game if he landed the Stone Edge. What the game would have looked like. I have no idea what the game would have looked like if my Araquanid didn't get frozen and Pelipper was gone right away. So, I don't know. I'm mixed on the situation, but it was a good game. It was 2 good players going against each other, in my opinion, and I'm so excited to play them in playoffs if I get the opportunity again. So that's the game. Thanks for watching. We are 9-0 plus 32 now. Basically locked into playoffs. We were locked into playoffs last week, but we are now, at worst, we are going to be the 3rd seed. So these last few games are really going to be fighting for the playoff bye. The 1st or 2nd seed will get that playoff bye. If I can get the 1st seed, that's more ideal because it means I play lower seeded players during playoffs. Yeah, and that's it. So hope you enjoyed the game. Sorry for the end sort of rant situation about the hacks. It's still sort of going around my mind because it's hard to understand. It's one of those situations where the hacks happen like early game and mid game, so like the rest of the battle would have been completely different. So it's hard to imagine those things. So regardless, great game to Baldi, great game to Jack. I'm super excited. I think he's one of the dark horses in the league that might end up winning the league potentially. Yeah, great, phenomenal game. So until next time, see y'all later.